She likes to bite and run and jump. Hello, welcome in, Elwin. But yeah, she likes to bite and run and jump and make a mess of things. She's in her like this is like the cat equivalent of the terrible twos, where she's very fussy. She has a lot of energy. All right, but you're walking all over my food. Okay, so I should go over today's tea pairing. I should actually get to it. Um, Today's tea. She's biting me right now. By the way, she's biting me. If in case you were wondering. um, but today's tea is we have a pumpkin spice chai. I was like, autumn, Thanksgiving and whatnot. It's full swing in autumn, peak of autumn. I wanted to make something a little warm, something that really reminds you of the season. Um, so it's a pumpkin spice chai. I'm actually almost out of it, which makes me sad. But it's a pumpkin spice chai. Um, and I was actually considering making something else today. I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll do like an English breakfast or an Earl Grey, keep it easy, just because I don't feel very well. My throat is pretty sore. I don't take to the weather changes too well, but my throat is sore. And so I have a lot of mucus and whatnot. And I was like, maybe chai is not the best option for this morning, but that's okay. We have some chai. Um, and to go with it, I actually started panicking a little because I don't have any just regular milk. I guess my milk expired and I threw it out and I didn't buy any more milk. And so I panicked a little. But welcome in, Alchu, welcome in. So I panicked a little. But I have creamer, but it's all sweetened. So I guess that means I'll just put a little less sugar in my tea. But for today's creamer, we have some pumpkin spice creamer. I thought that was befitting. I was going to use just regular oat milk, but I was like, why not? Why not just use the pumpkin spice? And then for my sweetener, I was going to use regular sugar, but then I was like, you know what? It's pumpkin spice, it's pumpkin pie. Um, I decided to get a little bowl of brown sugar instead of my regular sugar cubes because I thought that would be very delicious in there. To sweeten it with brown sugar instead, give it a little bit more oomph. Pumpkin spice, yes, yes, yes. And then for today's food offerings, I have right now, this is like my little snack plate. I thought to go well with the very warm, spicy flavor of the tea, I thought just some Biscoffs would go really well. So I have some Biscoffs. I have a few Biscoffs. They also kind of have a warm flavor. I don't know. I don't know how to describe the Biscoff flavor. It's kind of unique to itself. So it's like I guess that's evident in the fact that like people will make Biscoff flavored baked goods, but it's kind of unique to itself. It's almost like a caramel graham cracker kind of flavor, but I thought that would go really well with the pumpkin spice chai. And then there wasn't really much thought behind this one. These ones are just my favorite. The chocolate covered butter tea biscuits. Those are my favorite. I just have them with everything. So not much thought behind that pairing. And then, especially while I wait for brunch, because I am making brunch right now as well. It's in the oven. While I'm making brunch, I was like, this is a lot of sweet and spice and whatnot. I wanted to cut through it a little bit. So I have some little baby bells because they're kind of a brighter cheese, but they're also a bit creamy. So I figured that would go well with what we have going on. So some baby bells just to cut through all the sweet. And then last but not least for the snack options, whoop, I just spilled some everywhere. But we have some apple caramel coated granola. It's so good. I found it at the store on sale because everywhere is getting rid of all their autumn stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need it. So yes, that is the snack options. The drinks you make always look so yummy. Thank you. Thank you. I try to pretend I'm good at drinks. I think I'm just good at displaying them. My coffee last night was a bit revolting. I put way too much caramel in it, and which is weird because usually I I love caramel. I can never have enough of it, but I put way too much in there, and so it tasted a bit disgusting. My hubris got the better of me. I do want to say I'm very sorry if anyone restreams this. My device that I was going to use to access everything, it's charging. It was more dead than I thought. I thought it was very much charged, but it was not. So it's charging right now, and maybe in a little bit, if it's charged enough, I will go grab it. But I cannot see restream chat right now. I'm so sorry. Oh, hey, yo, Yuri, running around doing chores, but I got you restreamed on Twitch. Thank you, thank you. Again, I'm so sorry to Twitch. I can't see you right now. I'm going to be missing the Twitch chats for just a little bit, but I will make sure to be more careful next time. I really apologize. But yes, so that is the snacks. And for brunch in the oven right now, we have cooking. I really like any sort of baked potato thing with tea, especially with black teas and like chai and stuff. So I was going to go all out and make a potato soup, like a baked potato soup, but I thought the logistics of that while we were streaming would be too much. So instead, to go with, it's a very nice, rustic, hearty brunch. I'm going to make a twice baked potato. So that is going to be brunch. It has, let me check the timer. We have about 30 minutes until the next step. So, but we will start off with our tea. I think I've yapped. So make a tea party. Yes, this is a tea party. Absolutely delish. What's your favorite soup? That's such a hard call. I love soup so much. Oh, I have to think. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I do make a lot of chicken and dumplings just because I get sick very often. And so chicken and dumplings is just my go-to whenever I'm sick. It's great when you're sick. So I make a lot of that, but I don't know if it's my favorite. I really liked baked potato soup. I also really got into pho recently. I tried pho for the first time. Welcome in, Lucius. Welcome in. I tried pho for the first time because I was sick, and I heard it's really good when you're sick. Good luck with the stream, Prince. Thank you. Thank you. But yes, I heard it's really good when you're sick because it's aromatic and just the right kind of spicy, especially because I loaded up with sriracha. And it was so good. I've been obsessed. I could really go for another round of pho. All right. I don't actually know that's steeped enough, but we will see. Oh no, it is steeped enough. I just got hit with a blast of its fragrance. Stirring in our sugar. I tried to make very much sure that I do not clink when I stir. I just feel like that's so impolite. And now we're adding a little bit of creamer. There we go. Oh, that was all such a good call. I got the ratios perfectly right. I did a little scoop of brown sugar. I filled up the cup about 2/3 of the way with tea, and then I topped it off with some creamer. I actually think I want just a touch more cream. I like a lot of cream in my tea. I topped it off with creamer. Oh, it's so good. Oh, perfect. I'm really sad because the store I actually got this tea from, I discovered this store only when it was doing like its big closeout sale. So it was shutting down. And it was such a cute store. And they had this pumpkin pie chai tea, and it's so good. Um, I think it's an actual tea brand. I don't know if that tea brand is exclusive to the store, but I don't know where else to find it. So I will have to scour to look for this tea again because I've had it for like a year now. No, it's been more like a year and a half. I only drink it every so often because I don't know where to find it again. But I figured our first tea pairing Zatsu, it's a special occasion. I can break out the yummy tea, especially because it's seasonally appropriate. Try China tea. It's good for health. I should. I know a lot of Chinese aromatics are very good for you. Oh, here's the cat. Hello. Hello, beautiful. She's a beautiful, scruffy black kitten with beautiful orange eyes. I saw her and we just instantly clicked. I saw her and I was like, oh my goodness, she's my favorite cat ever. I love black cats with orange eyes. They're so Halloween. They're just so Halloween. Hello, hello. I do realize I forgot one thing. One last little thing. One second. I have to get up. What? Oh, it was actually right behind me. I do want to light some incense as well. I have a dragon's blood incense cone. I just feel like that would be the perfect thing to set the mood. A lot of good smells. So we're going to light that. I promise I have things to actually talk about. And we're going to use a good old trusty match. What on earth does dragon's blood smell like? Let me look at the package. It's like, I don't know if the package tells me anything. It's good. It smells good. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a very good smell. Oh, I got that match the first time. All right. Sometimes the cones take a minute to light. And you're going to let it go for just a second. It's actually, the fan is actually putting out the flame. Oh. I don't know if that's enough of an ember. We will see. I might need to light another match. Yes, I think I do. Okay, let me light another one because I don't think I lit it good enough. The cones are always so hard to light. They take a. There we go. Can you hear the match ASMR? I have to shield it. I have to shield it from the draft. That should be good. There we go. All right. So now we're able to get started. I actually had to. I have so many notes because I have to take notes because I get ideas of so many things to talk about, and then I sit down and I feel on the spot, and they all leak out my ears. So I have to. I have to make sure I have like a physical copy of notes, or else I'm going to forget everything. Uh, my brunch today was actually going to be because I wasn't sure how well I'd be feeling after I got up. My brunch today was actually going to be an onsen egg over rice with some dashi soy, but I figured the potato would be much more befitting for the flavor profile we have here. Let me actually let me take a bite of Biscoff. All right. Oh my god. I never understood the Biscoff hype. Oh goodness, I'm choking. I never understood the Biscoff hype until I tried it, but they're really good. And now I understand why people make like birthday cakes and stuff out of Biscoff. I was actually, this is completely unrelated. This is a tangent. I was actually on TikTok earlier and I was getting ballet TikToks. And so I was watching them and it was making me realize ballerinas are so talented and beautiful. Ballerinos are useless. They're completely useless. Like, I believe it was the one that really hammered it in was a recording of the Nutcracker. And it was it was the part with the Sugar Plum Queen. And she was doing so much. She was doing her pirouettes. She was so graceful. What was the ballerino doing? He was just picking her up every now and again. And I know that's probably physically taxing in and of itself. But like everyone in the comments was like, wow, this is so romantic. I wish that were me. And the only thing I could think of is he's not doing shit. He looks like a clown up here. He needs to start spinning around on his toes. I think we need to start holding them to equal standards. I want to see them spin in flounce. Or I was just like, that's a completely like non sequitur, but it was just so, it made me feel so viscerally. I was like, oh my God, you look dumb. I mean, I think to anyone who's not into ballet, ballet looks dumb anyways. But I don't know. I like ballet, I do. But just like, especially in the Nutcracker, a lot of the ballerina work leaves much to be desired. I'm sure there's other ballets that have perfectly fine male roles that aren't boring. But that one, I was just like, I was snoring. We're taking a bite and a sip. I'm still recovering from almost choking. Something I've been really, what's a performance with a good male part, you'd say? I don't know. I will always say for anything, this is so basic, but Swan Lake is so good. Swan Lake is so good. But honestly, if you were to see a lot of the best ballets, both like score wise and choreography wise, I find come from operas because, especially traditionally, a lot of operas will have kind of a like ballet intermission of sorts where they just put like a ballet in the middle of it. Um, and I always love those so much. I like opera a lot though. I very much enjoy opera. But yeah, something I've been excited to get into. I'll probably end up doing a stream dedicated to this, but also this might be that stream. This might be that time. As I've been so excited to get into Victorian medicine because I've just, you start thinking about it and you start realizing how fucking crazy these people were. In the Victorian era, a lot of medical positions you technically needed a license for, but they were vastly unregulated, and there were a lot of like roles in the medical field that you didn't need a license for at all. Didn't they use like mercury or some shit? I don't know about mercury, but they did use a lot of other horrible things. um, I know when I can't remember if it was debut 1.0 or 2.0, but I did mention that opiates, I said opium, and they did use a lot of opium in the Victorian era, but I meant opiates. Opiates and cocaine were a very common drug to the point that you would give your infants and children opiates and cocaine to like soothe a toothache or like a common cold. It was it was definitely wild, and that was actually something I wanted to talk about. Is something that's actually really fascinating about the 1800s, especially the early to mid 1800s. I believe they started finally cracking down later on in the Victorian era, is Victorian patent medicine. And if you didn't know, um, Victorian patent medicine is the result of the fact that in the Victorian era, a lot of people were dying for various reasons, most of them having to do with illness and um, contaminated like drinking water and air. But so a lot of people were dying. So people decided, because the Victorian era was the industry boom, it's when America and the UK started to be industrialized. And so people wanted to invent anything they could. And so a bunch of people, very unqualified, very maliciously, started creating what they called patent medicines. There was no drugulations. There was no drug regulations at this point, pretty much. So you could just do anything you wanted because the law couldn't stop you. Um, and so Victorian patent medicine was like a huge thing. And basically, what it is people would make tinctures or just like it was mostly in the form of syrups and tinctures, and they would have a laundry list of things it would cure, and a lot of times it would just be harmless medicines. So like it would just be harmless materials, like it'd be like a sugar syrup, but it wouldn't help you. I mean, it's still scummy that you're buying all this medicine only for it to do nothing, but it wouldn't help you much at all. But other people, just because research at the time was very limited on the ingredients they were using, as evidenced by the fact that they were giving infants cocaine, um, a lot of people would just put whatever they want in there, and some of it actually turned out to be very lethal. Um, in fact, a big reason why the soda industry started in general is because of Victorian patent medicine. I believe, I don't know if soda was invented for this purpose, but most of the sodas you remember, like that, most of the sodas that still exist now started as Victorian patent medicines, like Coca Cola, Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper was a big one. Dr. Pepper was huge in patent medicine. And I do believe this is, I have no evidence to back me up, but a Dr. Pepper, a nice crisp Dr. Pepper when you're not feeling good, I can believe it. I can believe it has healing qualities. Perhaps it's like divine. Perhaps it's like some sort of divine interference you get from sipping the sweet nectar of a Dr. Pepper. But oh my God, does it hit? But yes, a lot of soda that was invented in the 1800s was for patent medicine purposes. Root beer was another big one. Actually, if I remember correctly, I think root beer was one of the ones that turned out to be kind of harmful in its initial recipes, because of the process they used to process the roots that they use in root beer. But yes, that one was definitely a very common soda used for patent medicine. Coca Cola, there's always that rumor that the reason why it's called Coca Cola is because it had cocaine in it. And I can't remember if that's verified. I'd like to believe it is, just because the name is so to the point. But it was definitely another soda that was commonly used in patent medicine. Yes, it was a lot of syrups and liquids, and soda was very common amongst them. In general, jumped out then back in because chat was bugging out, huh? No, I'm so sorry. AniLive is a very good app, I promise. It's really good. Um, but yes, while some patent medicines were a bit more specialized, um, most of them had such long lists of things they would cure that it was basically like everything. Yes, of course, bugs on the app, unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. It works perfectly fine all the time. But yes, such long lists of things that it would cure, it was basically everything. They're called cure-alls. It's kind of derived from the concept of panacea, which is a kind of like holy substance that was common in a lot of churches before this time that would cure everything. So they were called cure-alls. They would cure diarrhea, they would cure dysentery, they would cure the common cold, they would cure the terminal illnesses. Sometimes it was crazy and there was no regulations, and so people could just do anything they wanted. You technically, I believe, for the most of the Victorian era, if not all, you technically needed a license to be considered a pharmacist, but I don't think that stopped a lot of people. And even then, I don't think pharmacists stopped themselves to not produce these insanely harmful cure-alls. Uh, some of them would contain like actual poisons, because it was like the snake oil era. You know, there was a lot of there was a lot of people were just rushing to make the best medicines they could, because the medicine industry was starting to really get its foot on the ground. Um, in fact, I think one of my favorite facts about this time is back in the Victorian era, there was roadside medicine shows, basically. Leaving because I helped my friend. Oh, goodbye, goodbye. Good luck with your friend. It was nice having you around. But yes, there was a lot of roadside like medicine exhibitions where people would take their carts. I believe this actually, I'm going to, this was actually the opening to a Fable game. I can't remember which one. I want to say it was Fable 3. I want to say it was Fable 3, where there's a roadside like exhibition like this. So think that, where they're pitching these patent medicines. So it was very common for people to park these carts on the side of the road and give a presentation on all the things that their medicine cures, draw a big crowd. It ended up becoming such an event that they started employing the use of Mary Andrews. I believe this was more towards the earlier parts of the Victorian era. I don't think Mary Andrews were exactly in fashion towards the later parts, but there was Mary Andrews, which was clowns that were specifically hired to to bring in attention to these roadside medical exhibitions. I believe they actually date before the Victorian era, but they were definitely used in these patent medicine roadside shows. Um, and so they would bring out clowns and little orphans to help them. Like it'd be like a fun event. And it's so strange to think about now, people parking on the side of the road and having a little clown show to hark their medicines. You would get shot. You would get put in prison very fast. But it's just, I think it's a very I think it's one of the clearer examples about how the Victorian era was extremely poorly dysregulated. Welcome in, Zach. Hello, hello. It's a pleasure to have you. But yes, the Victorian era was very, very poorly regulated. It was insane, and I don't believe drug regulations started to really take place until the end of it. Patent medicines were a problem for a very long time, and unfortunately, a lot of people did die because of it. Be it because um, the substances they were using to make these cure-alls were actually dangerous and could exacerbate illness symptoms, or just because people would start taking these patent medicines that do nothing, expecting to be cured, and they would not be cured, and they would die neglecting their symptoms because they were taking these cure-alls. It was a very interesting time. Um, Victorian medicine in general was just a mess. It was um, surgeons in the Victorian era and hospitals in general actually had quite the they had quite the reputation for killing people. Oftentimes in the Victorian era, if you were sick, you would not go to the hospital unless you absolutely had to, because the medicine industry at the time was so poorly regulated, and it was just it wasn't working very well. The Victorian era, for the most part, was still using humoral theory. um, Germ theory had been accepted in other places. For example, in a lot of the Middle East, they were accepted. I remember watching a video about the fastest surgeon in the Victorian era, and his mortality rate was like half. Yes, I actually have quite the tangent about him. Robert Liston, insane motherfucker he is. He was crazy. But yes, in the Middle East, germ theory was starting to be more commonly adopted, and that actually made the Victorians a bit more, a bit less receptive to germ theory itself. It wasn't until Mr. Pasteur started to really publish his findings that germ theory started to gain steam at the time. But because it was the Middle East and the Victorians did not trust the Arabs very much, they struggled to really get attached to germ theory. So they were using what was called humoral theory, which goes hand in hand with what is called miasma theory. So basically, it was believed that the main components of the human body, were four different humors or liquids. And it was, oh, 1 second, the potato's done. Let's get it out of the oven. We'll stop for just a moment. All right. We're going to mix it together. Well, nice design. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome in. They're getting their baked potato out the oven. Yes. I'm grabbing my baked potato. We're going to mix it up together. The skin got nice and crispy, which is perfect. So I have to scoop out the insides, but that's going to make it so it holds together nicely. Hello, hello. I'm back. I have my baked potato. There's one. And let's scoop out the other half. Oh, it's hot. It's very hot. But oh yes, I was talking about humor theory. It was believed that the body had four humors that really made up most of the human body, and those were yellow bile, black bile, phlegm. My speech impediment strikes again. Phlegm and blood, or also known as sanguine. Um, and so, any level of imbalance in your humors is what made you sick. It was usually seen that sanguine, having an excess of red blood in your body, that was seen as not only good for your health, but good morally. Um, Victorian era discrimination was almost a bit cartoonish, um, in the sense that things like an excess of black bile would give you black eyes and black hair and meant you were just naturally sick. So it's a bit on the nose, but yes, having an excess of red blood in your body was seen as very healthy, and it was also seen as very pure almost because they were still very religious back then, so it was seen as very very holy and pure to have an excess of blood in your body. But for the most part, having an imbalance, especially um, of the black bile, was seen to be the cause of most illnesses. And this is because, like I said, in part to the miasma theory, because Victorians did not believe in germ theory yet, they believed that illness was not caused by bacteria, but instead by the air itself. This is mostly because back in the Victorian era, especially in the lower classes of society, you it was very common for human waste of all sorts, and also waste from horses to just be left in the streets. And so not only would the bacteria from the waste be seeping into the air that people breathed, it was also contaminating the water. A lot of people like to think, oh, the Victorians didn't like to bathe; they were filthy. They did like to bathe quite often, um, but it was actively dangerous to bathe at times because their water was so contaminated with human feces that it was easy to get sick from drinking and bathing in water. So they often took what was called dry baths, where they would take a brush or a rag or something like that, and they would fill it with soap that way, and that's how they would clean themselves. They did clean themselves. It was just actively unsafe to full on submerge yourself in the water that would come from the plumbing systems. And so that's why they believed in miasma theory. They believed that the air and water itself was that they were almost there. They believed the air and water itself was what was holding this sickness. They didn't know at the time that it was because there was bacteria in the air and water, and so it was hard to kind of find a root cause for the reason why the air was making people sick. But yes, exposure to what they called bad air or night air is what would imbalance your humors, um, and make you sick. And this is all to say that hospitals in the Victorian era, because they didn't know about the concept of germs, or they were just less likely to accept it, were extremely filthy. They didn't have good regulations on the cleanliness of their employees or their actual like hospital grounds. And so oftentimes in the Victorian era, hospitals were called houses of death because you did not want to have to go to the hospital unless it was absolutely necessary. Most of the time, you would go to the hospital if you needed an amputation, which was common back then, again, because they didn't know how to treat open wounds. But you really only wanted to go if you needed an amputation or something like that. For the most part, if you were sick, you just wanted to stay home maybe if you were wealthy, take a trip to the seaside. Um, and it's Western society, the bastion of hygiene. Yes, no, I try not to. I try not to generalize the Victorians and a lot of the Europeans in the 1800s as being dirty because they had their own. They had their own issues that kind of kept them from really keeping up with their hygiene very well. But I will say it is a little bit their fault. Uh, a lot of scientific and medical fields in the 1800s were very, very exclusive. And so you only rich white males were, I'm sorry to say it that way, but they were the only ones really allowed to participate in those fields. Surgeons was kind of they were seen as a boys' club. Medical schools, especially, were seen as an upper class boys' club, and so their view on medicine and their willingness to change the medical field was very restrictive. They, for the most part, they thought they were correct already. They got a little defensive of their ideas being challenged, and so that unfortunately leaked into the rest of society, in which their poor practices and their stubbornness um, made them hurt a lot of people pretty much because in the Victorian era, surgeons didn't have to wash their hands. They didn't have to clean their tools. They were allowed to reuse tools. Anesthesia wasn't a thing until the latter half. Robert Liston, I mentioned him earlier. He was actually one of the first surgeons to ever perform with anesthesia. I wonder why, because he kept killing people. Um, but yes, it was very unhygienic. The surgeons were unhygienic. And another thing is that in the Victorian era, most surgeries were actually performed in large auditoriums. Uh, Sometimes it was so people studying to become a surgeon could watch and see how it works, like firsthand, which like that's all right. You have to see something first before you can confidently do it. So I can't exactly blame them for that. But other times they would just let rich people buy tickets and so they could come and gawk at the spectacle of surgery. So it was oftentimes a mix of the upper class and people actually studying surgery at gawking at these surgeries that were happening. They were big events. Surgeons were almost like celebrities back then because the medical field in the state it was very new, and so people were very curious about it, especially because a lot of people were dying of illness and injury and disease. So they wanted to get the inside scoop. But yes, most surgeries were performed in auditoriums without anesthesia. So it was not only was it unsanitary, it was also extremely mentally stressful. And so most people, when they went to the hospital, they did not make it out. It was you did not really want to go to the hospital when you were a Victorian. And so one of the more iconic surgeons of the time was a man, this fucking beast of a man. His name was Robert Liston. He was, like mentioned before, he was known to be the fastest surgeon of the time. Now, if you asked me, do I want my surgeon to be fast? I don't think so. Thankfully, now surgeons take hours to perform even like basic procedures. I don't want my surgeon to be necessarily very fast, but in the 1800s, this was a huge bragging point. He mostly did amputations. Like I said, for the most part, when people were going to the hospitals in the Victorian era, it's because they were getting an amputation. And so he mostly did amputations, and he was known to be able to saw through limbs in minutes. He would make it a point to amputate full body parts off of the human body in minutes, and he'd perform a lot of them high out of his mind. I don't know if I remember that part specifically, but I would believe it. A lot of Victorians, because knowledge of substances was very select. People did not quite know about the substances they were taking. A lot of them were often high out of their mind, on purpose or not. But yes, the fastest surgeon, he would saw off limbs in minutes. And he's also not only was he the fastest surgeon, he's the only surgeon ever recorded to have a surgery with a 300% mortality rate, which is insane. So 300% mortality rate means not only his patient died, but, oh, thank you for the like, fellow Yuri. Welcome in. Not only his patient died, but two bystanders died as well. He was making a point to amputate a leg as fast as possible. He amputated the leg in 2.5 minutes, mind you, which is insane. But yes, as fast as possible. In amputating the leg, he swung his scalpel so carelessly that he cut off the fingers of his medical assistant at the time. And he also slashed the chest of a bystander who was observing. And so the first two, the first two actually died of, what was it? They died of hospital gangrene, which, what did I join to? I'm telling you all about how insane Victorian medicine was. And this is just the surface. This is scratching the surface. This is the more iconic stories that people, that regular people might know about. But yes, the first two, the patient who got their leg amputated in 2.5 minutes and the medical assistant, they died of hospital gangrene, which was a very common plight in hospitals. That's how most people died there. So it was basically an infection of the open wound because they were not washing their hands. They were not cleaning the wounds. They were not washing their tools. They were reusing them. So they died of hospital gangrene. The third one died of shock later that night. So 300% mortality rate. 3 people died as a result of this guy trying to do surgery really, really fast. But he was known as one of the best surgeons of his time, which of the time, yes. Nowadays, it's he was a bit crazy ass. He was a bit insane. Welcome in, welcome in. But yes, he killed slightly less people. No, exactly. He killed slightly less people. He was also a raging asshole. But most people did not like him. I believe even a lot of his coworkers didn't like him because, welcome in, Choco Bitsy, hello. Most of his coworkers didn't even like him because he had quite the ego. Probably because he loved to tout himself as the fastest surgeon alive. He was a nasty little man. He was a nasty little man. All right, just real quick, we're going to, it took a while, but we're going to fill back our potatoes with the mixture. Oh, I almost forgot the bacon. 1 second, I have bacon bits. All right, we're going to fill our potatoes once I put these bacon bits in there. This always happens whenever I make tea and I'm talking to people. I will pour myself a cup of tea, and then I will just be so obsessed with talking that I'll forget to drink the tea. I believe it's cold by now, but I can top it off with some fresh hot tea. Yes, now we are inserting the filling. I have so many potatoes I have to get through. I was considering making katsudon for dinner tonight because I have a nice Yuri, I love your model. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you like how I look. I have a big pork loin that I deep froze a little bit ago. And so I can cut it up and make it into chops and make katsudon. But I'm also like, oh my goodness, I have so many potatoes to get through. I have like over 10 pounds of potatoes to get through. My favorite part is the mesh on your hat. It's so pretty. I know. I love it. It's so cute. It's so cute. I love how I'm dressed. But yes, I have so many potatoes to get through. So I'm like, maybe I should make another potato thing. But also maybe I should lay off the potatoes. I know a potato hates to see me coming. Oh my goodness. There's almost too much filling. This was a small potato because I don't want the most. So there's like too much filling. So I have leftover, but that's okay. All right. Let me go top this off and then put it in the oven, and I will be right back. To the tray with ye. All right. Potato fritters, maybe, or those smashed roasted potatoes TikTok is obsessed with. Potato fritters sound so good. Oh, you know what I do if I had some some beef on hand? I'd make some beef stew over potato pancakes. Maybe I'll see if I can buy some. Welcome in, welcome in. Maybe I'll see if I can buy some because that sounds so good. I love making potato pancakes. There's actually a restaurant near me that is authentic Polish food, as in these people were Polish immigrants who moved here, um, and it's so good. That's where I became obsessed with the concept of beef stew over potato pancakes. All right. Ah! A little bit more sugar because we added more tea. Oh goodness. I'm sorry. I'm clinking so much. Now I'm going to leave this butter on the table because I don't feel like putting it away. But I assure you, well, maybe not. She's sleeping right now. We're safe. I was just going to say, I assure you the cat is going to jump on the table and try to eat it. She's obsessed with licking butter. I have to hide the butter dish from her because she licks it so much and it's disgusting. I can't get her to stay. I don't even know where she found this obsession with butter. I don't give her people food. I make a point to only give her cat food. Sometimes I will give her a bite of crab stick. She's such a little gremlin, she is. She's evil, but I love her very much. But yeah, sometimes I'll give her a bite of crab stick, but that's it. That is the only people food I actively ever give to her. But she's such a little beggar. Little more cream, little more cream. But yes, where was I? We were talking about the 300% mortality rate surgery. Yeah, that was just a long-winded way to say that the medical industry and field in the Victorian era was very bad. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't I again? I try not to overgeneralize the Victorian era because it was very much a product of its time, but also because we still do a lot of the dumb shit they did back then today. There are still people who are essentially selling patent medicines online. Like those healing masterclass people who sell like the, I don't know, like the essential oil kind of people. So these are things that we're still doing. It wasn't just exclusive to the Victorian era. And I mean, think about in the 50s was really the start of like the weight loss boom. So there was a lot of people selling harmful medicine for weight loss. Stares at my million bottles of essential oils that my mother hoards. Oh my goodness. Essential oils are good for smelling good. They're not good for drinking or anything like that. They're not going to help you. I mean, they smell nice and they might make you happy because you smell nice, but that's about it. Something else that I've also been thinking about. I know I posted about it on TikTok already. I'm sorry, I'm munching. I'm finally breaking into the granola. Something else that I know I already talked about it on TikTok, but I have definitely been thinking about spirit photography more. Um, in the case that you didn't see the short itself, in short, spirit photography was a thing that started to really pick up steam during the occultism boom of the Victorian era. As mentioned before, a lot of people were dying of illness, and a lot of children, especially, were dying very untimely deaths. And so, under understandably, the Victorians really wanted a way to cope with all of the sudden and tragic loss, especially of children, family members dying way too young. So they really clung on to occultism, and seances were very common. That was one of the biggest trends of the occultism boom of that time. So seances were common, and of course, there were a lot of phony seances out there. Probably all of them. Let's be real. There's a lot of fake seances and psychics and whatnot. But I think the best part of that time, just because we have, the visual evidence of it and it looks very cool, was spirit photography. During this time, paper photography was starting to become a thing, but people mostly used what was called negative plate. It was a more evolved version of like the daguerreotype photography. Um, so there was these metal plates that you would develop a photograph onto. Um, and during the time of spirit photography, the most common method was layering these negative type plates over each other as they were developing. So you can make it look like there were ghostly apparitions in the room with you that weren't actually there during the original photo shoot. Um, And so people would use this to take advantage of people. I mean, of course, a lot of customers just thought it was cool to be taken to take pictures with ghosts. So a lot of them were just there for the scare, but a lot of people were approaching these photographers in hope of seeing their loved ones in the room with them and things like that. And so they would take pictures of these people, and they would usually already have some developing plates ready to go, and they would layer them over top of each other. And so it would develop these ghostly apparitions into the final product. And so people saw this and they actually thought that this was a spirit in the room, because most people, cameras were not common. Most people didn't know how photography works. They didn't even really know how the development process worked. And so they had no reason to not believe that there were ghosts. They didn't know that you could, um, they didn't know that you could do this kind of thing through some cheap tricks with the negative plate style photography. Something that's interesting is a lot of people think that like camera tricks like this, I mean, on one hand, kind of scummy, but if it truly brought comfort slash closure, that is true. I would say that, but it was the fact that the people who were doing this was just doing it for money. I don't think they were actually really that interested. Of course, I can't really speak for them. I never met them, but they were just doing it for money. um, so they're I can't give them too much credit, but a lot of people, nowadays we have like Photoshop and everything. A lot of people don't know is that photo manipulation has actually been a thing for a very long time. Both, we have the spirit photography where they would layer the negative plates against each other, but even like models and such that were printed on newspapers and tabloids at the time, and just like vanity shoots and stuff like that, they would actually edit them. There was ways that they could manipulate photographs. Oftentimes it did not look very good, but again, most people did not own cameras. They did not know how the development process of a photo worked, and so they did not know that these were tricks that were at the disposal of photographers and whatnot. So people have been slimming their waists, changing their appearance, editing their photographs for centuries. Basically, as long as the camera existed, people have been altering their appearance through various means. Hair tutorial when? Oh, you think you love my hair? Unfortunately, there's no tutorial. It's fake hair that is rooted into my porcelain. I'm sorry, I can't help you much there. I don't know how to. I don't know how to. I don't know how to use real hair. Eye tutorial when? I could give you an eye tutorial. Like preserving them in a jar, I could tell you how to do that. I could tell you how to preserve some eyes for later use. Maybe a snack. Oh, you're drawing. Oh, you meant art. I thought you meant, okay. I thought you meant like body parts, like real body parts. Oh my goodness. I already know how to do that. I I always get scared. I always dread the day people ask me for art tutorials because my process is not very good. I've been drawing for a very long time. Half of my family works in the medical field. The other half of my family is a bunch of eccentric artists. So I've been drawing for a very long time, to the point that it's very second nature. I'm bad at tutorials, especially because I switch between mediums a lot. So I posted about it on Twitter the other day. But when I like render digitally, I really don't like how like digital rendering brushes look. I think they oftentimes make things look really muddied. So more often than not, I will not. I won't use like a regular rendering brush. I have a few like pencils I like that are have a bit of like a blur to them, a bit of opacity control, and I will individually select all the colors in between, and I will just chip away rendering like that and like very gradually shifting the hues. So I'm not a normal person. I don't think I'm the person to ask for art tutorials because I draw like a psychopath. And because I grew up in a family of half traditionally raised artists, I also, I don't think I work in the most efficient way. I really like studying oil painters. I do a lot of studies of Rembrandt in my free time. And so it's it's not very accessible or efficient. My art process is not very good. Absolutely no one here is normal if you think about it. I like to think that's true. If you're sitting here enjoying your time with me, I like to think you're also at least a little bit of a psychopath. Or maybe you're like a therapist and you're really trying to get into my brain. I'm sorry, it's empty in there. It's just empty porcelain. It's hollow. If you bonk bonk, you hear it like clink. But yes, we were talking about photography and how it's like midnight and I'm clipping my nails, so go figure. Oh my goodness, it's midnight there? It's noon for me. It just passed noon. But yes, we were talking about photography. And another interesting product of that time, this was actually, if I remember correctly, more towards the start of the Edwardian era, late Victorian era, was also a rise in fake fairy photography. For a very long time, the Victorians were still very they were still very superstitious in regards to things like fairies. I'm actually going to check on my potatoes. I think they're burning. One second. Oh no, we're okay. We're okay. Ugh. The smoke, I got flash burn. All right, there we go. Yes, Victorians were actually very superstitious, and especially when it came to like belief in fairies. If you look at um, pictures and photographs of young boys in the Victorian era, you will see that they were dressed exactly like little girls. They had the big ringlet hair, they wore dresses and things like that. And that's because for a very long time, people in the Victorian era would dress their sons, their young sons, like girls, because young boys were especially at risk for being kidnapped by the Fae. And so they would dress them like little girls because it was thought that the Fae were not as interested in little girls. So fairy superstition was changelings. Changelings count. Um, the Victorian belief in the Fae is vast and strange, but they were very superstitious in the Fae, and so towards the latter half of the Victorian era, it's actually very funny. This whole thing was started by a pair of young girls. They started a whole hoax of fairy photography. And it was very simple. It was very simple that they just took some drawings and illustrations of fairies, or they scrapbooked some photographs together to make it look realistic. And they hung them up with thin wire and string, so you could not see the string if it were to be photographed. And so they hung up these fairies and they would take pictures of themselves with them. And it looked, at the time, it was very convincing. Again, saying this for like the fourth time now, people did not have access to cameras very often. It was a bit of a more elite and specialized thing. And so in the Victorian era, a lot of people were kind of clueless to how easy it was to manipulate photography. Now, not everyone was like this. People did have their did start wisening up, especially in this time, and not everyone fully believed that these were like actual photographs of fairy, but they were, for the time, they were pretty convincing, especially because these kinds of cameras were somewhat lower quality, and so that gave you a little bit more leeway with the kind of tricks you would pull, just because the low quality would cover your ass a bit. However, there was one person in the Victorian era who fell for anything. And everyone was always mad at him because he was so gullible. If you told him it was written on the ceiling, he'd crane his neck up. And that was, very ironically, author and creator of the Sherlock Holmes series, the series about the very intelligent detective, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Hello, welcome in, EJ. But yes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Um, he was very gullible. He very much fell for spirit photography. Is this a history lesson? I thought you said you were hollow. I'm not hearing hollow. I'm hearing teacher type knowledge. It's all the brain power is in the spirit that possesses. Trust me, trust me. I have no physical brain, but I like to think my ghost retained some of its knowledge. But yes, he was very gullible, and it pissed a lot of people off. He was so gullible to the point that he was losing friends over it. And so he fell, of course. He was gung-ho about spirit photography. He thought it was very real. And then when fairy photography came out and people started doing this fake fairy photography, he believed it fully. And not only did he believe it fully, he was an adamant defender of it. He was writing to newspapers and stuff about this fascinating proof of fairies that he had captured. It was quite he was quite insane. He was quite crazy. That is so goddamn funny. It really is. People were really fed up with his shit by the time he died, because again, he fell for anything. I mentioned. And again, I just think it's very ironic that the person who made Sherlock Holmes, the author of Sherlock Holmes, which is currently in the modern era regarded as, his character is regarded as very intelligent, very calculating, very skeptical. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was an idiot. I know I shouldn't call him an idiot, but he was not smart. He believed anything you told him. And eventually, for a very brief while, I don't want to say it was like a full-on industry, but fairy photography did become like a big thing. I believe like, oh, you know what? You know what else? I believe the young girls were his nieces, or there was some familial relation there. And there was another man that really ran with the fairy photography thing, and started making a good bit of money off of it. But it's very funny to think about. Towards the end of the Victorian era, they started losing their superstition about the fae. But for the time being, it was very common. Not inviting the fae into your home, fearing the fae kidnapping your young children. It was very common. I had to actually print out my notes today because, again, usually I'm sitting at my desk, which has a PC, but we're sitting at the dining room table today, so I don't have access to that, and so I have another thing I can use to charge up. but it was not charged at all. It was on 1%. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is not going to do. So I printed them all out on physical paper. Well, paranormal activity. One of the hooks holding the string lights just fell, and it scared me so bad. Do you believe in any superstitions yourself? I might. I was just talking about the Fae, and now things are falling off my walls. So I think something bad is happening. But yes, I'm a good bit superstitious. Oh, turn that off. Yes, I'm a good bit superstitious, I'd say. Well, I don't know if I'm superstitious. I'm more delusional and a little paranoid. So, like, I don't actively, like, participate in many superstitious behaviors, but sometimes I am scared I'm going to leave my room and there's going to be a monster at the fridge. But there are a few superstitions that I follow, mostly like money related, lucky penny and all that. I also try not to let any of my money or my wallet touch the ground because I think that's bad luck for your finances. Though, with how much the museum cat pisses me off, I'm starting to think that black cats being bad luck might be true. Again, she's sleeping very sweetly right now. She's in her favorite bowl. And so I'm not going to tempt her. Oh, she just picked her head up. I think she's chasing mice in her sleep. Before the stream, I actually made sure to play with her for a little while because I knew if I didn't, she'd be crazy. I mentioned clipping my nails and it being midnight. That's actually a superstition in my country that you shouldn't clip your nails after sundown. That's fascinating. Why is that? Is there any specific reason? I've actually um I've actually traveled. I haven't been to many states within the U.S., but I have actually traveled to a few countries. Specifically, I've traveled to Central and South America before, and it was very fascinating hearing a lot of their superstitions, especially because I was visiting some historical sites, and so it was very fascinating to hear about their mythology and their superstitions and things like that. And my spiritual reasons, spirits roaming at night might knock your hand. I didn't chew all the way. The spirits roaming at night might knock your hand-eye coordination off kilter. Oh, that's fascinating. That is fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not necessarily superstitious. Logical reason, just please don't use sharp objects when it's dark. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, yeah, I'm not the most superstitious, but I have mental problems. So sometimes, even if I know it's logically not, um, even if it's logically not something that I have to worry about, I get scared. Like I'm like, what was it? There was something recent. I don't know. Sometimes I'll be laying in bed and I can't lay near the edge of the bed. I have to lay in the center of the bed as much as possible because I get scared that ghost hands are gonna come up and and touch me. Sorry, I saw a thing outside. Speaking of being insane. I think I invoked the name of the Fae too much. Or maybe I talked about ghosts too much. They're coming back to haunt me. Again, I've spent so much time yapping that my tea is cold. I've eaten one biscuit and half a wheel of cheese. Half like a little wheel, they're only like a bit inch big. And my tea is so cold. Not even the potato. I did eat half of the potato so far. I'm really trying to take my time. I prepared this little meal and I was looking at it and I was like, this is way too much. I can't eat this much. I don't have a very big stomach. I don't weigh much at all. And so I don't know why I prepared so much. It was definitely a bit overkill, but it's okay because most of it is cookies that I can just put back in the box. I just topped off my tea again because once again I let it get cold. It's very good though. This was a good idea. I had pumpkin spice creamer in the fridge, and so that really elevated the flavor of the already pumpkin spice tea. I was tempted to put a cinnamon stick in it, but I don't have much left, so I didn't want to push it. Something else I was actually tempted to do instead of tea today is I make a damn fine homemade hot chocolate. I was tempted to make hot chocolate, but I was like, it's not cold enough out. It's not cool enough. So I opted to not go the hot chocolate route. But soon, maybe when it's December, I'll do a hot chocolate pairing. But yes, I'm really good at hot chocolate. Something else I like to make, especially if I can't sleep at night. I don't know who named it that, but even when I make it for friends, we just call it cute milks. It's like an elevated warm milk. So I'll take a pot and I'll put it on the stove and I'll put milk in it. Cute milks. I'll take a pot and I'll put it on the stove and I'll put milk in it. But I'll also put a little brown sugar, honey, vanilla extract, cinnamon. It's very good. It's very good. It's a very warm, comforting, easy to make drink. I will say, the mucus that I mentioned earlier is starting to come up my throat. I'm very sickly. My immune system is really bad. It's always been very bad. I even when I was like in grade school, like when I was younger, I went home very often. I actually did not finish going to school. I had to be taken out of school and put in a hospital program because I was too sick to finish school. So I have never quite shed my sickly Victorian orphan roots. I still get sick very often, slightly less so, or maybe I'm just better at pushing through it. I woke up today and my throat was sore. Oh wow, you really are a sickly Victorian child. Yes, yes, I am. My throat was sore and my joints hurt. My joints are very bad. I don't have good joints. I don't have a good stomach, and I don't have a good immune system. So I will say, speaking of my bad stomach, I think danger is imminent because the cheese I used for the potato, for the twice baked potato, it doesn't have mold. It tastes fine, but it smells awful. And I know cheese usually smells awful, but this smells like especially bad. Like it's really bad. But I don't, girl, look, listen, I really wanted it. I really wanted it. I don't treat my body with as much care as I should. I should be especially careful, but I'm not. I take after my grandmother, who was often insane. The worst story I have of her was there was this sandwich shop near us uh, that she really liked to get sandwiches from. And I will say they were bomb ass sandwiches. Like, don't get me wrong. Uh, but she got a sandwich. I don't even think she was really like senile or anything. I think she was just weird and not very smart. She got a sandwich, she ate half of it, and then she put the other half on her nightstand. And then a week later, the sandwich, hello, Nemu, welcome in. It's always wonderful to see a fellow Tensei head come in. But yes, she had this sandwich on her nightstand for like a week, not refrigerated, just on her nightstand. And she still ate it. She still ate it. It was horrible. I remember one time I went to her house and there was a tray. I can't remember what it was. It was some sort of like freezer dinner. I want to say it was like a lasagna or something. That hello, Nemu. It was some sort of freezer thing that she had in the oven, and she kept eating from it. And I went in there, and it was moldy. So at least I'm not that bad, but I do get it from her. It's a very much a running joke in our family how we're we we do not have the safest food practices. I mean, rest assured, if you were to ever come over and I was cooking for you, I would have safe food practices. I would wash my hands. I would make sure I have fresh ingredients. VTubers in their mold, shaking my head. I know. I know. I can't run out and get more cheese right now. I can't. So I just used the old stinky cheese. It's not moldy. It's not moldy though. I actually will say, oh, welcome in. Hello, everyone. Hello. Um, I don't have any moldy cups right now, which is a feat. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Lynn. Welcome in. I don't have any moldy cups right now. Uh, my desk is free of moldy cups. I think all that there is right now is mostly drinking Pepsi from last night's dinner. As you know, my daily dinner Pepsi. I'm also doing dishes and same. My house is mostly dusty and dog hairy. Yes, my the apartment that I lived in, it's an old building, and you know how it is with older buildings, especially in the U.S. because they're not built very well. They just kind of are in a constant state of being dirty. Like I do everything I can. I sweep twice a day. I wipe off surfaces, but because it's just old and it's very a very poorly sealed apartment, it just gets dirty again. Yes, my paint has lead. My landlord told me don't lick the walls. Yeah, I'm not too keen on licking the walls, anyways. Um, no, my paint isn't lead, but it certainly is the landlord's special. Like this complex was recently bought out right before I moved here. Um, and it's very cheap. It's not very good. The paint has no primer and it's very cheap paint. So like anything will scrape the paint off the walls. It's not lead paint, thankfully, but anything will scrape the paint off the walls. Like the sink by the strainer, the walls are all scraped up merely from the act of putting dishes in the strainer. It's insane. I hate it. And also they when they did the floors, it's that kind of like fake wood vinyl that's really gross. They did a shit job at that too. It's like if you're going to cheap out on the flooring material, at least do a good job, but it's very uneven. And so some of my furniture has started to make holes in the floor because it's very uneven. Like it's like one side of my living room is higher up than the other side. So the table I'm at right now has started to poke a hole in the vinyl. Um, has started to poke a hole in the vinyl because it was done very unevenly. And again, it's just dusty. I thankfully don't have a problem with cat hair. The museum cat is pretty good about not shedding, but which is good. I hate hair. I think hair is like the most disgusting thing ever. I have like an irrational fear of hair. If I ever have a hair in my mouth, like if I accidentally get a hair in my mouth when I'm eating, I'll throw up and I will not be able to eat the rest of the night. I hate hair. I hate when it's like, oh, if you're taking a shower and there's some hair on your body, I hate it. The other day, I showered and I didn't realize the towel I picked up was already dirty and it was covered in hair. And so I went to dry myself off and it was covered in hair and I almost had a breakdown on the bathroom floor. I hate it. I hate hair. I hate loose hair so much. It's disgusting. But I'm again, I might be insane. Especially like I think that's why I like a lot of Japanese horror. A lot of Japanese horror goes very ham on the hair, the scary hair. And it's disgusting, but it's supposed to disgust me because it's a scary movie. That's me with rice in the sink. That's fair, honestly. Ugh. No, you're not insane. It's a blessed feeling. It's a very awful feeling. I gotta. I'm thinking about hair. And, I just thought about having a hair in my mouth, and I almost threw up. You know, rice in the sink is disgusting. Most things in the sink is disgusting. Um, any sort of food in the sink like really grosses me out, especially because I don't have a garbage disposal, so I don't have the option to just like shove it down there and blend it down the pipe. I have to I have a stopper that I have to take gloves and scrape everything into and then toss it in the garbage. And it's horrible. Again, it's a very old building that I'm living in, so it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. In fact, when I first moved here, I actually got a ton of shit from my landlord because uh, the stove was very old and it didn't work. The burners didn't work, and the actual knob to turn on the oven was very broken. And so we kept getting repair guys out here, and they kept saying, "This is such an old, cheap model of stove. There's no way we're going to be able to find the parts." And so I kept telling the landlord that, and they kept bringing out new repair guys and being like, "If they find nothing wrong with the stove, we're going to fine you." And so eventually, enough was enough, and they just bought us a new stove. The landlords bought us a new stove, and it's okay. It's a decent stove. It's a glass top, um, which sometimes I honestly prefer the coils, just because they're easier to keep up with. But it's a glass top, and it has knobs. The one thing is, I don't know how to set the time on it. The time is very off. Right now it says right now it says it's 8:17 p.m., which is not true. The time is very off, but even flipping through the guide, there was no instructions on how to set the clock, so it's just stuck like that. I will say I think we're going to start winding down soon just because of the mucus. The mucus. The mucus is starting to build up quite a bit. Something I am looking to get into soon is, well, I should probably do it sooner than later, which I think is why I've been thinking about it, because it's going to get cold. Though I live in a warmer place, so sometimes we don't have to worry about cold. But I know I mentioned phlegm is so annoying. How does one just eradicate it? Truly, truly, phlegm is so annoying. I'm probably going to I'm probably going to uh, break my rule. I'm probably going to have a Pepsi in a little bit, just because I find that the carbonation does a good job of clearing things out. But maybe it's just my hubris. Maybe I want a second Pepsi today. Like I said, I haven't been sleeping well. I think I deserve it. I think I deserve a little Pepsi treat. Also, I shouldn't drink coffee. I only like my coffee with a lot of milk in it. I'm a big milk head. I'm a big creamer maxing milk head. So I only like my coffee with a lot of milk in it. Um, so I don't want to have any coffee today because milk is just going to make everything worse. I tend to drown my coffee in sugar. Yes, me as well. Um, Everyone I've ever met hates me because I've put so much sugar and milk in my tea and my coffee. I know. I'm like a heathen, but I really like it very sweet. But yes, I'll have a Pepsi because not only will that break things down a bit, it will also give me the caffeine I need. I mean, I'm getting a bit of caffeine from the tea, certainly, certainly, but I need a little more. My energy very much fluctuates throughout the day. And so what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to um, we'll close the museum for now. We'll end our little tea party, and then not for now. In a little bit, I still have yapping I want to do. I still must yap, but in a little bit we'll close the museum, and I'll get a tea. Not a tea, not a tea. We're drinking tea right now. I'll get a Pepsi, and I'll lounge on the couch and read a book, or maybe put on a record and vibe, as the kids would say. I would vibe. Something I meant to describe the teacup I was using. It's one of my favorites. It's one of two that I got from an antique store next to a tea house. It's a very nice, I don't know how exactly I describe this green. I would say like a pine green, but it's a little cool. It's a bit of a cooler shade of green. So it's a dark, cool shade of green, and it has a white rose on the center of it, and on the outside it has a bunch of gold like filigree embellishments. And then on the cup it's the same thing, where it's the dark green with the gold filigree embellishments, and then on the inside of the cup is the white rose. It's very cute. It's one of my favorites. I actually got another one of my favorite teacups from that antique store It's white and it's pink and it's white and it has pink little lily of the valleys on it. So a lot of pink and light green. It's very cute. Lily of the valleys are one of my favorite flowers. My favorite flowers are hello, welcome in, welcome in. My favorite flowers, excuse me. My speech impediment will never not kill me. My favorite flowers are lily of the valley and dahlias. I really like dahlias a lot. I know that's a bit of a basic answer. I mean, at least I'm not saying roses, but I really like dahlias. I think they're very pretty, especially like in the darker colors. But yes, I got my two favorite teacups from there. And there's a funny thing about that tea house actually. It's like a genuine Victorian building from the 1800s. They did a very good job of restoring and preserving it, and it's very much a very good atmosphere for having tea. It's my favorite tea house to go to. There's another one in the city neighboring me that is actually in a big university that I really want to go to soon. I think it will replace this tea house as my favorite when I do go there. But for now, this one's my favorite. It's a 1800s building, a genuine 1800s building. It's a tea house. It's decorated very elegantly. There's lace tablecloths and doilies, and all their teacups and stuff are antique. It's very good atmosphere. And there's actually a funny story about that tea house is that I didn't realize until I went there with some friends, and then we got there, and I was like, wait a minute. But the tea house, before it was a tea house, was actually a salon that my aunt used to own. and so she and her business partner ended up parting ways uh, many years ago. But it was crazy because we arrived, and I was like, wait a minute, this is familiar. And I realized it was because it was the salon that my aunt used to own was in that building. And I can attest, it's haunted as hell. It's very haunted. Maybe I am superstitious. Ghosts scare me. I'm very afraid of ghosts. Um, it's very, very haunted. Welcome in, Vanya. Um, I've I've had things happen in those salon bathrooms that I cannot even repeat. I'm so scared of mirrors. That's something I'm really scared of, like irrationally, is I'm really scared of mirrors. And so maybe it was already my heightened nervousness making me hallucinate, but I definitely think those, at least the bathrooms in that building, are haunted. There's another tea house by me. It's very cute. It's still pretty historic, but it's a little less elegant. It's more rustic, a little more like country. It's on a big farm, and there's a big florist shop. It's very like, I don't want to say like old west style, more like old southern style. Very, again, very southern. It's very cute, and it's a bit cheaper. When I'm going to a tea room and I'm not really banking on the extravagant experience, I like to go there. It's cheaper. It's very cute and charming, and it also has an antique shop. And it also has a farmer's market where you can buy like jam and honey and stuff. And that was actually where I tried for the first time. I tried honeycomb, and it's so good. I always would see people eating honeycomb, and they made it look so scrumptious. And they're right, honeycomb is so good, but it's so expensive. So I never have the money to buy it, especially if I'm going to the cheaper tea house. Um, I don't have, I don't usually, it's usually a bit too rich for my blood to get the honeycomb, but it's so good. I sampled it once. But yes, I always like to keep a jar of preserves on hand, especially if I can get it from a market or something. I like, especially when I'm feeling sick and I'm very sensitive and I don't have a good appetite. Usually, a good breakfast for me is an English muffin and some butter spread across, and some a good jam. I think the best jar of preserves I actually got was, I was talking about traveling to South America and Central America. One time I was in Roatan, and I got a jar of fresh guava jelly. It was so good. I still long for it to this day, but I've never been able to find another jar of guava jelly that's as good. It never compares, and I mourn knowing I will never again go to Roatan and get fresh guava jelly. Same with one time I was in Belize, and there was some street carts making food, and I had the best. It was like almost like a jerk chicken, and it was beans and rice. And by the gods, was that the best food I've ever had in my life? I It was a very long time ago. It was almost like 20 years ago when that happened. I still think about it. I can still taste it. It's still so good. It was so long ago, but it was so good. And I miss it. Again, I mourn because I don't think I'm ever going to have, I don't think I'm not going back to Central America anytime soon. Right now, I'm actually saving up because um, I'm finishing up one of my degrees here in the States. And then the master's I want to get is actually one that I can only get in the UK. So if I'm going to be doing any traveling, it's going to be to the UK so I can get my master's there. I have a few friends who are on student visas in the UK, and it looks very promising. I am planning on getting my master's. I want to see if I can find a way to dual major. I'll have to see how it works there. But I'm planning on getting a master's in Victorian literature, of course, because I'm studying English right now. I want to do Victorian literature, but I also want to get a degree in archival sciences. I know a lot of archivists, and the job seems very fun. So I also want to get a job in, or I want to get a degree in archival science. Though I will say, um, if anything, if I'm going to use my degree for anything, I'm going to go the professor route, most definitely. I have a lot of experience as a teacher. I work as a teacher off and on. So I definitely, I mean, if you're getting an English degree, people tell you like, just be prepared to be a teacher. I'm fully prepared to be a teacher. That is like one of the, unfortunately, that is like one of the only things you can really use an English degree for. I mean, you can also work as like a journalist or something like that, but I'm not specializing in journalism. I'm specializing in, again, Victorian literature and creative writing, though you can still pick up some like freelance jobs and whatnot. So we will see. But like I said, I think I'm going to go the professor route. And I also want to do the archive route because I would love to be able to work in archives and museums. That would be a dream. It doesn't pay as well as the professor route, certainly, but it would be nice. I get people mad at me very often. Um, I was actually majoring in computer science for a while, but I dropped out of computer science because everyone there was insufferable. I was like, even though I would probably make a lot of money doing this, I couldn't stand it. Everyone there was insufferable. Computer nerds are easily the most unstandable people in the world, especially all my professors. They were assholes. Yes, I hated my professors. I hated everyone around me. And I was like, especially um, because they're like, I had my insider scoop. There was a lot of problems starting to really show on the surface of the computer science industry. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to bother. I'm going to leave, and I'm going to not worry about how much money I'll be making. I'm going to pursue something I actually like. And like, don't get me wrong, I like tinkering. I've built a computer before, but I don't want to do that for a career. It was horrible. I had about 60 to 90 assignments a week, and they were all boring. They were all so boring. I'm technically I am certified to be like I'm technically, what is it? I'm not Cisco certified. I'm the CompTIA, the CompTIA equivalent of Cisco for like internet technician and stuff. But that was easily the most miserable I'd ever been in school, was when I was taking like when I was getting my internet technician certification. And so I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so now I'm doing English, which is much more befitting, I'd say. I was just worried about making money. I was naive. I was stupid. I was just worried about making money. But now I'm more worried about being happy. And I think it's a decent route. Again, people get mad at me that I dropped an actual viable degree for one that most people say is completely useless. But I have my plans. I don't mind. I don't mind going the teaching route. So, especially because it does give me the excuse to travel. I don't like living in the States the most, mostly because they don't value their history as much as other places. The UK definitely values its history a lot more, and a part of some of it I think is ego. But I do enjoy that the UK is a lot more friendly to the historic atmospheres in the US, and that's a big reason why I'm like, you know what? I think I would like to travel and study there and maybe permanently live there. And again, I have quite a few friends in the UK, both expats and native, and they all say it's a good idea. So I'll give it a shot. Thankfully the visa process for moving is um, it's not too annoying. The UK is one of the easier countries to immigrate to. I actually checked out of curiosity. I know I mentioned that I'm Turkish on my father's side. Out of curiosity, I was wondering, how easy is it to immigrate to Turkey, especially through descent? I don't think I'd ever live in Turkey. Um, some parts of Turkey, some things about Turkey are very good, and I think I would enjoy, but other parts are certainly a little less enjoyable. Its government is kind of in shambles right now. But um, so I checked because I was curious how Turkey through naturalization. It's very difficult. Even though my father was born there, I could not immigrate there probably because he's no longer with us. So Turkey is not on the list. But I want to consider the UK, especially the UK is actually the only country, of course. The only options are really the UK and the US because this was the era specific to them. But the UK is the only country that offers any sort of specialization in Victorian culture. The US does not, as far as I know, at least. I've seen one college offer Victorian studies, but I don't want to go there. I'd rather just, I think I'd rather just go overseas for that. All right. Well, I think I'm reaching the end of my tea. So I think it is time to say farewell today. I might, I will make no promises, but I do want to see about streaming again later today. Just a quick chat. I think it would just be fun, especially because I know I missed Tuesday. And again, I'm very sorry for having to cancel Tuesday. I was just way too busy. And then by the time I got home, it just like I didn't have the time. Um, so, yes, I was very busy Tuesday and I missed Tuesday. So we'll see about maybe making it up a little bit. So I might stream again later. We'll see. Today's Thursday, correct? Yes, today's Thursday. So tomorrow is Fashion Friday. We're going to be talking about modesty culture and its misconceptions. And then after that, it's going to be our horror game Zatsu. I'm probably going to release a poll on Friday for us to choose what we'd like to talk about. And then Sunday, of course, this is what I'm most excited for. It's going to be our 19th century book club. We're finally going to be cracking open Carmilla together. So I will make sure to find a PDF of Carmilla. It's legally available because it's public domain. So that is Sunday. That is the main event. That is what I'm looking forward to most. But other than that, I will see you tomorrow. I will see you on the website known as Twitter. And don't worry about, for the 19th century book club, don't worry about reading. I'm going to try to not have a speech impediment that day, and I will read to you. We will read together. So you'll read together, and every once in a while, we will stop to discuss. So thank you so much for dropping by, and I will see you maybe on stream later. Maybe, probably just about. All right. Atsu Yuri, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It was very enjoyable to have breakfast with you. Goodbye, goodbye. Mwah.